Okay, good morning, Peak Performers and Mastery Coaching Group members. So this week's video is, of course, going to direct us back to the Vendor to Advisor training. And again, I just want to welcome anybody who's new to the program. So we're kind of halfway through the quarter, and if you remember, we're going through advanced training courses at the beginning of the quarter, and then we're tracking through. So before we get into kind of what we're working on this week, I want to drop back and remind you of the cadence diagram that I handed out, I think it was a week ago or so. So in that, I think it was 2 weeks ago. So the cadence diagram, if you don't have that, make sure you check in with me and get it, email me or something like that. But we sent it out, and it's an important document because what it does is it lays out exactly how to think about planning your quarter. So every month you should have an area of focus, and that focus area is something you're trying to achieve. So for instance, you might be working on LinkedIn marketing, and so you're doing all your other stuff, of course, but you're gonna pour yourself into LinkedIn marketing that month, and you're going to optimize it and so forth. And there's a schedule, a period of learning, a period of execution, a period of optimization, and a period of rest. And it's kind of a cadence, and we go through it every month. And that way, we're kind of in these sprints instead of just chugging along with no real direction and never accomplishing anything. So hopefully you have laid that out, January, February, March, and hopefully you're in the middle of doing something significant with February. And right now what we're working through in our program is the vendor to advisor pieces. Last time we talked a lot about the trusted advisor, and the last two videos have actually focused in on that. How do I move into more of an advisory role, upgrade my personal brand? I talked about things you ought to be studying, things you ought to be working on, and identifying areas in your own selling process, whether it's speaking or it's consulting or it's facilitation, that you can get other outside resources, books, articles, blog posts, subscriptions, even a training class, whatever it is you need to propel yourself forward. What you don't want to do is find yourself over the next remainder of the year, however many months we got left here, about 10 and a half months, just sort of chugging along doing the same old stuff that isn't necessarily working anymore. So again, if your conversion's high, you're probably doing the right things. If your conversions are average or low, there's things you can be doing. Now this week, what we're doing is we're going back and we're looking at Module 5, and that's where the 4 meetings exist. So if you remember the 4 meeting model, it's how you move up. Now if you're in the small business market, hopefully you're already calling on presidents, but there's still an application here. If you're in the larger companies where there are IT people, then you have to move up into meeting 2 before you can really get some traction with economic buyers. And of course that means identifying asset owners. So I want you to review that module and look at the 4 meetings. If you're in the small business market, you probably start at meeting 2 most of the time. That's the owner, that's the president. And if you've built your value proposition, which we've already kind of started to look at in some of the prior week videos, now what we're doing is we're looking at our conversion rate. And so in Module 5, which our email today is going to point you back to, there are now some exercises to work through underneath. And I really would like you to post and collaborate on some of your answers to those questions in the Facebook group. So we haven't had a lot of people do that from these classes, but I really want to encourage you to do that, because when you do that, then you start to get more ideas, you get more creative, you start to think harder about it. When you just do it in a vacuum, you don't. And the truth is you're not growing professionally, you're not building your personal brand if you're not working through that process. So this week I'm asking you to evaluate some things. I'm not asking you to tell me exactly what your close rate is in the public forum there, but I am asking you to evaluate it personally, know what it is, and post out there, is it good, is it bad, and can you identify why? Okay? And then we want to look at some of the different strategies that are used to make it better. And of course that means identifying why it's not as good as it should be, or maybe it is awesome, and if it is awesome, you want to know why, and you want to keep doing those things. So as an example, if you find yourself losing on price all the time, well, then you might want to look at meeting 3, and you might want to see, am I selling enough value in meeting 2? Am I proposing the right stuff in meeting 3? And am I getting that verbal commitment that we talked about in meeting 3 before sending the proposal over? Because remember, as soon as you send a proposal in, you've lost control. You're just waiting for the client to make a yes or no decision, and you find yourself kind of pestering that person. Are you going to do it or not? Are you going to do it or not? And you find yourself sending in emails like, I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks, haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. and it gets tiresome for that person. So what we want to do is we want to get to the right people, we want to create the right value, we want to make sure we've floated the price and the value across the table to the right people before we spend a lot of time on proposal writing. And what does that do? It turns our proposal into an agreement. And I've shared before, my proposal close rates are in the high 90s, and the reason is because I don't actually write proposals. I write agreements, because there's no sense in you and I passing paper back and forth, and reading all kinds of stuff and making changes and all that sort of stuff if there's not a purchase to be made. So let's come to an agreement. Let's see what it is. Let's put it on paper. Let's sign it. Let's do it. And it's that simple. And that's what Mahan Khalsa talks about in his book, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. And it's a great read, by the way. You might want to go check that book out. But the bottom line is there's no sense in playing a game. Let's just get real. Let's just figure out what we need, and we either got it or we don't, and you either want it or you don't, and you either have the money or you don't. And if you don't, move on. They're back on your marketing list. Just move on. Okay, so work through the exercises. There's 3 or 4 different things to do there. There's a recording. I want to make sure you really do that. Record your next meeting with an asset owner and evaluate it, critique it personally, and post your observations online. You'll see that in the Module 5 exercises that I want you to do there. So I hope you're having a great week. Look forward to seeing some of your answers out there. And of course, don't forget, you're in Peak Performers and Mastery Coaching Group. If you're in the Mastery Coaching Group, we're probably meeting on some regular basis, either weekly or monthly. And if you're in Peak Performance, it's up to you to reach out to me. And of course, many of you are doing that. But if you're not, let's make sure we stay in touch. Let's make sure we're building your business. And remember, you get one-on-one coaching time, and I'm here to help you. So let's make sure we make use of that as well.